and just think, our country is better than this. And maybe that's why he doesn't want to hear from us, because maybe emotionally he couldn't handle it, I don't know. But by ignoring us, that's not compassionate, right? These stories are out there, even if he's not listening to them. I'm a middle-aged IT worker employed full-time with benefits. Even so, our family's health care and health insurance costs are significant. My mobility in the labor force would be severely restricted under the Republican proposed ACA replacement. For example, I could not work as an independent contractor and continue to contribute to the economy as I currently do. This was another line of story. People will not be able to do their jobs. They will not be able to contribute to the economy if they have to make different employment choices or different career choices. Say they have their own business if there's changes to our health care. It's not just a health issue. This one's simple. My family would be bankrupt, not for the AHCA universal health care coverage, coupled with the elimination of life insurance tax limits. So we now have a law that protects mental health coverage and requires insurers if they cover mental health, and it has to be covered similarly in terms of benefits to that of other types of health care. If they don't cover it, they don't have to meet that responsibility. So if we take out that requirement from our
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Slip on my flip-flop.
Okay?
Yes.
Trump's promise he can't listen to anyone.
Remember that?
Don't back off.
Well, she was hospitalized for multiple life-saving surgeries. She would be bankrupt, possibly dead, if it weren't for the ACA. And now we're all saving up money in case her insurance is taken away, becomes impossible to afford as a result of her pre-existing condition. No talk of tax breaks or corporate financial savings is acceptable when my best friend's life is on the line. We, along with millions of Americans who will die without affordable health care, are counting on Senator Portman to do what's right, put politics aside, and protect our access to health care. And this person has friends. I mean, thank God that are saving up to help her if needed. There are a lot of people that don't have that luxury. They don't have family or friends that can support them, in part maybe because their health care situation has isolated them. Think about what those people are going to do. The Medicaid expansion should remain in place for the sick and poor and for children. This is vitally important. When I was an ER doctor, I saw the results of patients who were unable to afford preventative care. It is not cheaper in the long run. It's cruel and causes suffering and poor outcomes. The ER is an expensive place to receive routine care and not an efficient use of healthcare dollars. Someone else wrote, truly in the richest country on earth, we should be exploring a single-payer system. We should not have the infant mortality of a third world country, especially in Ohio, which is 47th in the nation. We also, this is my personal ad, we have the worst maternal death rate of any developed nation. And this is at a time when look at what they're talking about, right? They're talking about pulling funding for Planned Parenthood. There is an assault on women, and we already are not in good shape in this country, people. Okay. It is disgraceful that our elected officials are willing to put fellow human beings in so much peril by allowing lobbyists and financial interests to interfere with providing decent health care coverage. So this is what it's about, right? I mean, this is really a tax cut bill. Let's understand that. So the whole point of this bill from a Republican standpoint is to give back money in tax cuts to the super rich, to the pharmaceutical companies, and to insurance companies. And they're doing that on the backs of the people who rely on Medicaid, frankly, and who get support to be able to afford coverage where otherwise it might be too expensive. Like, for example, if they have pre-existing conditions, are older, you know, that's it happens to all of us, right, folks? Like, it's not like you're doing anything wrong, you're just living. But it does make your health care more expensive. And so they don't want that. They would prefer to put dollars into the pockets of their financial supporters. I'm going to skip a little bit of this next one. My father worked his whole life, and both his savings and the value of his house were considerably diminished by the recession in 2007. Then he needed to sell his house because of my mother's health issues. She died and who lost her Social Security, was in debt, and had to apply for Medicaid. So even with his benefits, Medicaid, VA, etc., he's having trouble like covering his health costs, and he wouldn't be alive without those services. And his health issues would be much worse. Even with that, his family must chip in to pay for groceries, clothing, and all the rest of his needs. This woman writes, "My father served in the Korean War, was a small business owner, and worked in various industries his whole life. He tried to do what was right and provided for his family. He is not getting a handout. He is taking advantage of the safety net provided through him paying taxes through the years. Medicaid and Medicare and affordable insurance truly are the difference between life and death for seniors. It is a moral issue to take care of those who are unable to take care of themselves. Affordable health care should be for all. I am for expansion of Medicaid, a true universal single payer for all. The insurance companies are the only ones to benefit from the proposed plan." That's not really true, this is the very typical thing, but "support the ACA and work toward a single-payer health care for all in the future." And then these are the last two that I took down. I ran out of space. "If you cut the ACA, I lose my chemo. I will not be able to afford insurance with Trump care. I shouldn't have to die early because Republicans need to get richer off of me." Pretty simple. And then here's the last one that I took that someone wrote, and again, this was one line, but I thought it was like an important way to sum up. "Listen to your constituents. Hear what we're saying," right? That's what this is about, folks. That's why we're going to D.C. That's why we have to create a survey. These are things the senator should be doing here at home on his recesses, and we shouldn't have to be getting in his face to demand it, but we will. And if he does this, we will publicly call him out for it. And so now I'm going to introduce Steve Wagner, who's the executive director of UCAN, who's much better versed in what may be the policy implications of what's happening with the Senate bill. He's going to talk about that, and then if you all have questions, and then we'll probably just, close up with some chanting and then get motivated. On those sheets, it gives you advice for things that you can continue to do until this vote happens, probably at the end of this month.
Oh, are there John, are there more sheets somewhere?
No, we ran out.
Okay.
Steve Wagner from the Universal Healthcare Action Network of Ohio. So I'm going to touch on kind of two things. One is the process, and the other is what may be different in the bill that's coming up. So the first piece in terms of process is we understand that already a bill may have been submitted to the Congressional Budget Office for scoring. So that is one required process that they will have to go through, despite the fact that they waived a lot. So they'll have to get a score on how much money this is going to save the government, as well as what's going on in terms of the coverage. That's going to take them maybe a week to do. From that time forward, once they have that score, they can amend that bill without having to get another score, and they can still vote, okay? The only other requirement that's in there is they have to have 20 hours of debate. So we will see the bill sometime before that 20 hours of debate and then the vote. But that's all that we're going to have to see. Okay, so what do we think is in that? Unfortunately, as you know, the House-passed version of this bill is just a horrible, harmful piece of legislation. There is nothing that is good in that unless you're extremely wealthy. It has been said that 80% of that bill is going to survive in the Senate version. So there's a whole lot of not good that's going to be in the Senate version. Right now, Senator Portman is talking about what he calls a glide path for the Medicaid expansion. That is basically a way of describing the fact that he is taking the Medicaid plane and crashing it into a mountain. More slowly over time, but inevitably, that is going to result in the loss of the Medicaid expansion in Ohio. 700,000 people in Ohio would lose coverage, okay? The other piece of this that's really important to understand within this legislation is they're changing the way that Medicaid is funded. So Medicaid right now is a guarantee that the federal government will pay a percentage of the expenses. The state pays a percentage, and the federal government pays a percentage. What Congress is proposing right now is they're saying, for each person, I'm only going to pay this much. Doesn't matter what their expenses are, I'm only paying this amount. That fundamentally changes the way in which that healthcare works. And you see that in Trump's proposed budget. He proposed cutting an extra $600 billion out of Medicaid. That's on top of the $836 billion that would be cut under So that's the reason basically every budget there would be some sort of cut to what Medicaid funding is. And that means cuts in coverage, cuts in benefits, and cuts in payment, which ultimately means that providers will not want to accept Medicaid. So that's what's going on with Medicaid, as was discussed before. That's how they're funding all these tax cuts, is through cutting the Medicaid. The other piece that's out there is the threat to everyone else's health coverage. Okay? So right now, that the House version has a piece that basically can allow the state to waive both essential health benefits and protections for pre-existing conditions. Okay? That's really important in the stance that it doesn't mean that if Ohio does this, then we wouldn't be impacted. So let's say you're a company that operates in multiple states. If one of the states you operate in has relaxed all their essential health benefits, let's say they no longer require maternity or reproductive health coverage, that means you as an employer can elect that your health plan functions in that way and no longer has those kind of coverages. So this isn't just about affecting the individual market, people buying it on their own. This is all about your employer-sponsored coverage as well. Okay? So we don't know if that's going to make it in from that House version, but there's a good chance that may. Now here's a rumor that's out there about how Senator Portman is going to salve these conscience about this. Because as you know, he's very strong in his support of how he's going to fight the opioid addiction. You have heard that he's thinking of creating a carve-out, some sort of fund or something else to treat opioids. This is not the way we provide health care. Like putting something out there. It does nothing for prevention of this problem that we have in Ohio, and in all actuality, it's likely to be woefully inadequate to address the problem. So right now, the Kasich administration estimated that we're spending $650 million a year of Medicaid funds that are addressing behavioral health and addiction. There is no way that they're going to replace that level of funding just for addiction alone. So it's pretty likely that there's going to be this kind of Trojan horse put out there to say, oh yeah, I haven't abandoned addiction, but it is a sham. So stay tuned to see if that really comes to pass. Either way, we stand to lose 23 million people off of health care coverage in the United States. So what kind of questions do people have?
Why don't they have any shame?
So what's going to happen with people between the ages of 50 and 65?
Yeah, so 50 and 65, that's still probably in there. So that's the age rating. So instead of the ability for insurance companies to only charge 3 times as much to that population, they'll be able to charge 5 times as much. I think it's also important to note that on the marketplace standpoint, while they have talked about making the premium assistance greater, realize that they're completely doing away with any of the cost sharing. So all those out-of-pocket costs, there's no more assistance for that for anyone in the marketplace. And that was pretty substantial for, I want to say it was about $1,500 on average for a person in the marketplace. But you're completely doing away with that. Yeah, so the question was about what time frame there was for the Medicaid cuts and some of the other cuts. And yeah, some of the discussion is about starting that decline, that gradual crash landing in 2020. And some of the fight is about how long it should take. Because the House had proposed it within 2020. Portman is saying, hey, give us another 7 years. As I saw one of the commentators say, this is about the fact that you're going to boil a frog. You either put them in the cold water and turn up the heat, or you throw them right in the boiling water. Either way, the effect is going to be the same. People are going to lose coverage. Yeah, so the point is, they're delaying this implementation until after election. That allows them to hide the bad effects of this and potentially not suffer the consequences. Go ahead.